Heavy rain, strong winds, temperatures struggling to reach the average. That's what we were looking at across much of the United Kingdom over the coming days. And if you've been hoping for widespread snow, I need to be straight with you about what the data is actually showing. Right now, conditions across the country are remarkably varied. The Scottish Highlands are dealing with the coldest air, with temperatures dropping well below freezing overnight and snow settling on higher ground. Meanwhile, across the southwest from Cornwall through Devon and into Somerset, it's been mild and damp. Temperatures running several degrees above the seasonal average. Heavy rain warnings were issued this morning for parts of Somerset. That contrast tells you everything you need to know about the pattern we restuck in. Wales has been particularly wet. Near record rainfall in some areas this week. Eastern Scotland continues to see persistent precipitation with further snow over the hills. Between these zones, parts of Mid Wales and southeast England have seen something a little drier and brighter, but most areas are dealing with cloud, outbreaks of rain, and those temperatures struggling. With the wind and the saturated ground, this is likely to cause further problems. The Portuguese National Weather Service has named the system approaching us Storm Ingrid. This is tracking well to our south, but it will still impact us with heavy rain and stronger winds. The Met Office has issued warnings across southwest England and South Wales from 2:00 Friday morning until 9:00 Saturday morning. We're re-looking at 10 to 20 millimetres of rain in just a few hours, potentially more over a longer period. Wind gusts inland reaching 45 to 50 miles per hour towards 60 miles per hour in coastal areas. Now, I need to address something directly. About 10 days ago, the models were hinting at a significant cold spell. A week ago, there was a fairly strong signal for easterly winds and widespread snow. During this week, the forecast wobbled a bit, and then yesterday a lot of runs backtracked considerably. The cold weather we thought was arriving this weekend has failed to materialise in the way initially suggested. This is frustrating. I understand that. But this is exactly what weather does. It changes constantly. I am seeing some skepticism in the feedback, and that S entirely reasonable given what S happened over the past few days. When forecasts change this dramatically, trust gets tested. So I am going to be very clear about what we know with high confidence, what S uncertain, and what I am personally skeptical about. Here S what we know with high confidence. Over the next few days, it's going to be very unsettled. Low pressure systems are sliding in, slow moving, getting caught up with high pressure to our northeast. That S producing a southerly tracking jet stream with the main track down towards Spain and Portugal. For us, we re-trapped in this trough pattern. It's going to keep things really unsettled. I can emphasize that enough. Heavy rain, strong winds, plenty of spray and surface water on the roads. The pattern is this. We've got blocking to our north. That S forcing the jet stream southwards. Storm Ingrid tomorrow is the main example. Its most severe impacts will be on its southern flank, affecting much of mainland Europe. We'll still see heavy rain and stronger winds, but nothing compared to what we've experienced recently, nothing like the red warning conditions from a few weeks back. Still, it could be quite blustery and gusty out there, particularly Friday afternoon into Saturday. Let me walk through the timeline. Tonight, we continue with heavy rain and strong winds around the coast of southwest England and South Wales. Gusts of 40, 50, maybe 60 miles per hour. The strong winds continue to blow clouds and rain into eastern Scotland, where there'll be further snow over the hills. Rain tracks northwards again into northern England and Northern Ireland. Temperatures mostly holding above freezing with enough wind and cloud, but it's going to feel a lot colder than that with the persistent rain and wind. Into Friday, Storm Ingrid spirals away to our south. We get a brief gap in the precipitation Friday morning, but then another band of rain moves in. Stronger winds for all. Pretty difficult conditions widely there Friday night into Saturday. More spells of heavy rain move through. The southeasterly wind continues feeding cloud and wet weather into eastern Scotland. Further snow on the hills. Further heavy outbreaks of rain in parts of Wales and southwest England swirling around that deep area of low pressure. Saturday, not a great deal of change. Between the two zones of wet weather, there should be a few showers, but at least some drier and brighter weather. Temperatures struggling to reach the high single digits at best. Feeling a lot colder with that wind and rain in eastern Scotland. Might reach double digits in the southwest, but again, with gusty winds and frequent heavy showers piling in, it really won't feel pleasant at all. Sunday should calm down a little bit for some parts of the UK. More wet weather to come, but the intensity eases somewhat compared to Friday and Saturday. Now here S where things get interesting, and here S where I need to be very honest about uncertainty. The latest run from the UK Met Office model showed something quite remarkable for Monday and Tuesday next week. It depicted heavy snow breaking out across parts of England and Wales as much colder air digs in for a short period. This would be due to evaporative cooling. The air mass is indeed bitterly cold, but just about cold enough to see heavy snow with intense precipitation. I'm very skeptical of this forecast. Let me explain why. This is a rogue run. Not many other runs are showing this at all. We've not really seen this hinted at in the past few days. For this to occur, the stars really would have to align. Dew points would need to be just right. The upper air temperatures would need to cooperate. The intensity of the precipitation would need to be sufficient. Everything would have to go right. The UKV model has a colder bias in this run, taking into account evaporative cooling quite considerably. It on the colder end of the spectrum. When I look at the European model and the American GFS, they re-showing a similar pattern of unsettled conditions and low pressure to our south, but not quite as much cold air. They are keeping us on the milder side of any colder boundary. The cold air is tantalizingly close. Just a few hundred miles to our east and northeast. We can see it over Scandinavia. Snow showers there, bitterly cold conditions. That Arctic air is right there. But it isn't going to push in properly. We are going to flirt with it. The northeast of the UK will get close. But that milder Atlantic air is going to win out. It's one of those scenarios where we so close to something significant, but not quite there. The block to our north isn't strong enough. A few days ago, runs were showing that block much stronger. Proper easterly winds developing. That S collapsed. Now we are left with this hybrid pattern. Not mild, not properly cold, just unsettled, chilly, and rather miserable. For next week, I'd say I'm 90% sure most precipitation in low-lying areas further south is going to be rain. Some snow further north, especially over higher ground, is possible, but that's not unusual for late January. If you are hoping for widespread snow in southern areas, I wouldn't hold your breath based on current data. Looking at temperatures, more specifically. Overnight into Friday, it is relatively mild for January. Not warm, but above average. Afternoon temperatures 7 to 9 degrees Celsius. Into Saturday, morning temperatures again pretty mild. Afternoon 6 to 8 degrees. Sunday, a little bit of a chillier start, but again above freezing in most spots. Afternoon again 7 or 8 degrees. Monday, if that colder air does manage to dig in as the UKV suggests, temperatures would drop closer to freezing. Most areas hovering just above. The weather front moving in could give some heavy snow if evaporative cooling kicks in sufficiently, dropping those temperatures down towards freezing as the precipitation arrives. Then a secondary system moves in, and similar to the snow event we saw a couple of weeks ago, that western flank could see heavy snow if colder air digs in properly. We have to keep a very close eye on this pattern towards next week. It will give snow enthusiasts real intrigue, but I'm not going to promise anything. The forecast has let us down once already this week. I am not going to do it again by overstating what is genuinely uncertain. The ensemble forecasts tell us something important. Over the next week or so, we're re-looking at average temperatures. Nothing too cold, but nothing too mild either. It is the end of January though, so it's going to feel cold regardless. Temperatures perhaps dipping slightly cooler in the last couple of days of January, early February, with an unsettled and colder pattern. There are some very cold runs appearing for early February. The models are trying to develop something much colder into early February, a proper easterly, perhaps pushing in, similar to what the runs were showing a few days ago for this weekend. That's why I am very skeptical. It flopped for the end of January. Now the runs are trying again for the start of February. It might just be them trying to rinse and repeat this pattern. We'll have to wait and see whether it actually has any real fruition. The ECMWF model shows temperatures dropping off into next week, slowly trending downwards. Again, a cluster appearing around the start of February suggesting much colder conditions. But once again, it's pushing it into the longer term. We thought the cold was going to arrive in the next 3 or 4 days. Instead, the runs are now pushing it out to an 8, 9, 10-day time frame. The second time could be the charm. These patterns do eventually break through sometimes. But at the moment, we've got to focus on the short to medium range, which is very unsettled, pretty cold indeed, and yes, the risk of some snow like the UKV was showing, but mainly on higher ground and further north. Let me be clear about what I am confident in and what I am not. High confidence for the next 3 to 4 days, very unsettled. Heavy rain, strong winds, saturated ground leading to localized flooding in vulnerable areas. Eastern Scotland continues to see the worst of it, with persistent rain and hill snow. Southwest England and South Wales get battered Friday into Saturday. Medium confidence for Monday and Tuesday next week. There is a possibility of some wintry weather, particularly on higher ground and further north, if that colder air nudges in as low pressure systems pass through. Low confidence for early February. The models are hinting at something colder and more easterly, but they've been wrong about this pattern already. I need to see much stronger agreement before I suggest that S likely. Now, practical matters. If you are traveling over the next few days, expect delays, spray on the roads, surface water, Gusty winds, particularly in exposed areas. The Environment Agency has flood warnings in place. The Scottish Environment Protection Agency likewise. Check those before you travel. Ground is saturated from weeks of rain. Further heavy rainfall is likely to cause additional problems. If you in Scotland, you already dealing with the worst of this. You know what to do. Roads will be gritted, but multiple times may be needed. Don't just grit once. Wait until Friday evening when the snowfall eases off if you can. For those in the southwest, Storm Ingrid arrives early Friday morning. Secure anything that could blow around: garden furniture, bins. It's not going to be extreme, but 60-mile-per-hour gusts in coastal areas will shift loose items. Check on elderly neighbours. Make sure they restocked up if they don't want to go out in that weather. The Welsh valleys are going to see significant rainfall again. Some areas have already had near-record totals this week. The ground cannot take much more. Be very careful near rivers and streams. Water levels are high. East Anglia, I know many of you have been waiting for proper winter weather. Rather boring conditions in recent weeks. This pattern shift next week has potential, but I am not going to promise snow until we see how the systems develop. The data simply isn't strong enough yet. The Midlands have been particularly quiet this winter. Temperatures hovering around 6 or 7 degrees, grey skies, nothing dramatic. That extended mild spell may end next week when the pattern changes, but again, exactly how it changes is still uncertain. London and the home counties are in a similar boat. Mild and damp, not particularly pleasant, but not severe either. That could shift next week, but we'll need to see the data firm up. For Northern Ireland, you are in the firing line for heavy rain tonight and into Friday. The warning expires at midnight, but that doesn't mean the rain stops. It just means the intensity drops below warning criteria. Still going to be wet and windy. One thing I want to address: there has been some frustration about forecast changes. That's entirely fair. When you retold 10 days ago that cold and snow are coming and then it doesn't happen, it's annoying. Weather forecasting at this range is difficult. The atmosphere is chaotic. Small changes in pressure patterns hundreds of miles away can completely alter what happens here. The models do their best, but they were not perfect. What I will say is this: good forecasts acknowledge when things change. When I see the runs backing away from a cold pattern, I am going to tell you that. I am not going to keep talking about snow when the data doesn't support it anymore. That is not helpful. It is not honest. Many of you remember the Great Storm of 1987. Gusts over 100 miles per hour. Millions of trees felled. That was a forecast that went badly wrong. Since then, forecasting has improved enormously. We catch these systems better, we warn better, but we are still not perfect, particularly at longer ranges. The beast from the east in 2018 came together quite quickly. The blocking pattern developed, the easterly winds established, Siberian air poured in, temperatures dropped to -14 in places, significant snow across much of the country. That was a similar pattern to what the models were hinting at for this week. The difference is, in 2018, the block held. This time, it didn't. Burns Day storm in 1990. 107-mile-per-hour gusts, 47 deaths across the UK. We've gotten better at forecasting these events, but nature still surprises us sometimes. The current situation is less extreme than any of those events. You've seen worse. This is January weather, cold and wet, unsettled. Not unprecedented, not the end of the world, but it does deserve attention and preparation. For vulnerable people, this sort of weather is genuinely difficult. The elderly struggle with cold, damp conditions. Children pick up illnesses more easily. People have been poorly for weeks with sinus trouble, headaches, the constant temperature swings. That back and forth pattern may settle into sustained cold next week, which at least gives the body a consistent temperature to adapt to. If you have elderly relatives or neighbors, check on them. Make sure they warm enough, make sure they have food in, offer to pick up shopping if the weather is particularly nasty. These small acts of kindness matter enormously. For those with young children, the constant rain means they recooped up inside more. That is hard on everyone. If you get a dry spell, get them outside. Fresh air helps, even when it's cold. Just wrap them up properly. Looking further ahead, the longer range charts show the jet stream remaining well to our south. Cold air is always at play to our east, but it never fully pushes in. That just keeps us unsettled, but pretty cold, with some higher level snow and maybe some lowland snow if conditions align, as the UKV was suggesting. The risk of some transitional wintry weather next week is real. It's not high confidence, but it's there. If you live on higher ground anywhere in the country or in northern areas, keep an eye on the forecasts. Things could turn wintry quite quickly if those systems develop as suggested. But for lowland southern areas, I'd be preparing for more of what you've been experiencing: cold rain, grey skies, rather miserable conditions, not exciting, not dramatic, just persistently unpleasant. One last point on the early February pattern. The models are clustering around the idea of something colder developing. The ECMWF shows this. The GFS shows hints of it. We get a stronger block to our north and properly cold air for at least a time. An easterly wind actually gets going. Not a full beast from the east, but something in that direction. I've learned to be skeptical of these long-range signals, particularly when they have just failed to materialize. But they worth watching. Sometimes the atmosphere does eventually lock into these patterns. The energy is there. The cold air is there. It just needs the blocking pattern to hold long enough to draw it in. If you are planning anything for early February, keep half an eye on this. Don't make firm commitments based on it. Don't cancel plans based on it. But be aware it is a possibility the models are exploring. For now, focus on getting through this unsettled spell. Next week coming up is going to be cold and wet. Lots of rain and strong winds around. It's not going to be particularly pleasant out there. If you've got plans, keep an eye on the radar and the forecasts. Most days look like we're going to see at least some heavy rain moving through at some point. Not much dry weather coming up over the next several days. Cherish any dry spells you do get. Any gaps in those weather systems. Make use of them. Get outside if you can. Get things done, because the next band of rain one to be far behind. The main weather warnings to be aware of: Eastern Scotland, the amber warning yesterday has been downgraded, but you are still looking at 80 to 120 millimeters of rain in a few spots through to Friday evening. That goes all the way out to tomorrow evening. Northern Ireland, the warning expires at midnight tonight, but heavy rain continues. Southwest England and South Wales, 2 o'clock Friday morning until 9 o'clock Saturday morning. Heavy rain and stronger winds. Check the Met Office website and app for the latest warnings. These can change as systems develop. What S a yellow warning can become amber if conditions worsen. What S not warned for can suddenly need a warning if systems track differently than expected. The radar is your friend over the next few days. Check it regularly. You'll see those precipitation bands moving through. You'll see the gaps between them. You can time your activities around them if you flexible. Road conditions are going to be poor. Spray, surface water, gusty crosswinds, particularly on bridges and exposed sections. Drive to the conditions, leave extra time, be patient. It's not worth rushing in weather like this. For those asking about specific locations, I can give you street-level forecasts. But the general pattern is clear. Western areas, more exposed to the Atlantic systems, will see the heaviest rain and strongest winds. Eastern areas in the lee of high ground may escape the worst of it at times. Northern areas closer to the colder air, more chance of seeing some snow, particularly on hills. Southern areas in the milder air mass, predominantly rain. Scotland, you're in the thick of it. Persistent wet weather, especially in the east. Hill snow continues. Valleys mainly rain, but sleet at times. Temperatures just about above freezing in many spots. Northern England caught between systems. Some heavy rain at times. Pennines could see snow on higher ground. Generally rather cold and wet. Wales, you've had a battering this week. More to come through the weekend. Heavy rain, especially in the south and west. Hills could see sleet and snow at times if that colder air nudges in next week. Midlands, you've escaped the worst so far. That changes somewhat into the weekend and next week. More unsettled, colder. Possibility of some wintry weather if systems develop as the UKV suggests, but that S uncertain. East Anglia, relatively quiet compared to elsewhere. That continues through the weekend. Next week, more unsettled. Possibility of something wintrier, but don't count on it yet. Southeast England, including London, rather grey and damp. That continues. Strong winds at times, but not as severe as further west. Southwest England, you are getting Storm Ingrid Friday into Saturday. Heavy rain, wind gusts 60 miles per hour on the coast. Secure loose items. Expect disruption. Northern Ireland, heavy rain tonight into Friday. Ground saturated. Localized flooding, likely in vulnerable spots. That is the picture. Unsettled, cold, wet. Not what anyone wants for late January, but it's what we've got. The pattern may shift next week towards something wintrier, or it may just continue grey and damp. The data isn't strong enough to call it yet. Keep watching the forecasts. Keep checking the warnings. Keep an eye on the radar. And look after each other. This sort of weather is manageable if we're sensible about it. The frustration about the snow forecast not coming off is understandable. I share it. When the models build up a pattern and then it collapses, it is disappointing. But that's the nature of weather at this latitude. We're in a battleground between mild Atlantic air and cold continental air. Which one wins changes day by day, sometimes hour by hour. Right now, the Atlantic is winning. Next week, the cold might get a foot in the door. Early February, maybe a proper easterly develops, or maybe we just continue in this unsettled, cool but not cold pattern for the rest of winter. I'll keep analyzing the data. I'll keep being honest about what it shows. And I'll keep being clear about what S confident, what S possible, and what S just the models having a go at something that might not happen. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay warm, and